Hey everyone, welcome back here to my channel where I play Planet Zoo, and today we are building a restaurant habitat with all that comes with it. Yes, it is the same habitat all the way around, and I think our small kitties is somewhere in here. This is of course the Serval, which is apparently gone right now. But if you want to see how I built this habitat or just learn a little more about the Serval, then please keep watching. Okay guys, I'm honestly a little exhausted because this habitat have been on a journey with me. I initially wanted to build it a few weeks before the last update when I made my video on the long-tailed chinchilla mod by Gabboi, Bubbly Worms and GiornoPizza, because I just fell in love with it and I just had this idea of them climbing around in a little cage inside a restaurant but still having some kind of outside, and then suddenly it took up and I made it very big. That's not the point here. The point is more so that I just really fell in love with these chinchillas and really wanted to build for them. So when I put animals in here, you will see that is the long-tailed chinchilla. But the thing is that my game crashed 3 times. And that's kind of my politics, like 3 strikes and you're out, and it was sadly the chinchilla mod. I can see someone have already put it in there as a bug that this mod crashes the game. So it's not just my computer, and if you want to use it at a point, just check first if that bug is gone, so you don't run into the same thing. So I built for the long-tailed chinchilla this little habitat, and then suddenly I couldn't use my chinchilla and I got mad. I walked around, I closed down the game, I took a few hours and just was mad at it, then decided to actually think about building for something else and just leave this as it is. But then again, I really wanted to build this, so I wanted to figure out what can I build it for then. And then I actually went around and looked at a few things like rats, for instance, but that really isn't something that a lot of people would like to sit in a restaurant and eat while watching. Because a lot of people have this idea of rats being dirty, even though they're one of the most clean animals in the world. But I do believe some people would have issues with it, so I chose to just not do that. And then I literally checked out every single modded animals that is updated for the 1.14. And I checked every single animal that is in the game already, just through all of it to figure out, because it needs something that were small, because again it's Smalzie Zoo and this habitat is already built for a kind of small animals. I wanted something that would climb in here because it's a fairly tall habitat for someone who's only on the ground and only a small animal. And besides that, I just felt like nothing really fitted the way I wanted it to fit. So I ended up choosing the Serval because when I saw the mod in front of me, I was just like, we're gonna do that. It's not exactly what I want, because I wanted this really small chinchilla in here, and the Serval is clearly different. The Serval is also a carnivore, which the chinchilla is funny enough not. So of course I had to make it match, but this idea of having a room specific for climbing on the left side of the building, and then this outdoor jungly, or it wouldn't have been as jungly of course for the chinchilla, but that's what it's gonna end with. I think the Serval works fine in that regard. The only thing is that because we only have 2 adults plus babies in here, you can't really count on being able to see them all around you. Of course, you will maybe be able to see half of them, because at the same time I try still to give them opportunity to hide. Which again doesn't really make sense, but I promise you they can actually hide in here if they want to. Again, small habitat, but I promise they can. But because the game crashed these few times, there is a few things that is cut weirdly together because I built it multiple times every time the game crashed. So I hope I have stitched it together nicely, but if there's any like weird cuts, that's why. Also, this mesh clearly didn't need to be this narrow, these small holes, if I knew already back then it was gonna be at the Serval. Of course it will work fine for the Serval, but it would be needed for the chinchilla. On the back here we're gonna have 3 staff buildings, which is, of course, you can see here the keeper hut. Then we're gonna have next to that, I think, yeah, it's the staff what's it called, staff break room. And then we're gonna have a vet surgery because it's the place we actually have space for it. This will be this inside of the zoo, so there will be nothing behind this. And we already have a fairly wide building, so the only thing we actually do is making it a little more square, and that won't work weirdly. As for some buildings, it can work a little weird when you really elongate a building, where here we just squaring it off, and I think it will work fine. Anyway, this Serval mod I'm using is the one by Gabboi and GiornoPizza. We have 2 different Serval mods out there. Currently, the one I'm using by Gabboi and GiornoPizza is the only one updated for 1.4, but I do not know is the one by Maggie are gonna be updated later on. I do not know what the modders do in the shadows. I have no idea. And as always, the link for this mod will be linked below, along to my video on this mod, along with the video by Leaf on how to install mods into a game to make sure they do not break. I do believe this Serval mod also is an Axie. Yes, it is. It is also an Axie mod, so you should definitely only get it if you have Axie, or yeah, just download Axie. Most mods need them. I will also just mention that you can get this mod in English, Polish, French, Portuguese, Czech, German, Spanish, Italian, Dutch, and Korean. Not all modders notice the language on the site, but these do. And even if you use a game in a language that's not one of these, I actually don't know how many languages you can get Planet Zoo in. Then I know previously people have contacted the modders and then helped to get it translated, and that have worked. So again, if there's any mod you want to use and can't for one reason or another, there is this beautiful community on Discord where the modders talk together about mods and communicate, ask for help, and both newer modders, older modders, and all of that. It seems to be a really nice community. I'm mostly a fly on the wall in there because I do not know anything. I just try to learn what they're up to. But again, it's nothing more than... I don't know anything more than what any one of you could figure out the same way. Anyway, this Serval is this kind of weird animal. And I'm not the only one thinking so, because the name Serval actually comes from a few different regions in Europe. For instance, it have been called Lobo Serval in Portuguese by George Louis Leclerc in Comte de Buffon in 1765. How this was not an official name for the entire species, but a name for a spotted cat that were kept in the royal menagerie in Versailles. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Besides that, the name Lobo Serval actually derives from Latin, which lobo means lupus, and serval means Servarius, or that's where it comes from, and that is actually a name for lynx, which again we have the Eurasian lynx, North American lynx, and so on, which is actually very, very funny, is that directly translated from Latin lupus severus actually means lupus wolf, and severus means of or pertaining to deer. So deer like wolf in a way, which is really not what it is. But this probably comes for the way they stand and their stature of having this extremely thin. A lot of cats are slim, but this is extremely thin and have these elongated, thin legs and elongated neck. Not like a giraffe neck, but more like a okapi or something like that. So it's clearly a few times longer than a normal cat's. They also have this extremely stiff stature because their knees are placed so extremely high on their legs, so most of their leg will move completely straight when they walk, and then they will only move in their knee high up, almost as high as the chest, and their ankles, which are vastly closer to the ground, which is kind of a way to make it more agile, like a gazelle or a deer that kind of can jump around in these very difficult to move around areas. But even though it is really hard to determine just by looking at it what it actually is, they do still have a classification in the animal kingdom. They are in the Filifamilia suborder, which is the suborder for cats, meerkats, mongoose, and so on, but is mostly famous for its cats. And then the family of Felidae, that is the family of cats. Again, big cats, small cats, all the cats. The funny thing is, when we look at the genus, we for instance normally look at Panthea and Feline when we look at cats, which is the most common one. Panthea is the big one. Panther, lion, tiger, sorry, not tigers, they have their own, but all of the big ones besides tigers, because tigers have tigris. And then we have the feline, which is the small cats. The Serval have its own genus, which is Liptailurus, and that makes its Latin name Liptailurus Serval. And I think it's probably because it is so much different from a lot of other cats. I will say though, I know from social media and so on that quite a few people actually have these as pets, so they do also come in a domesticated version, but keep in mind that there's differences between animals like the dogs that have been domesticated for thousands of years and other animals that have been domesticated for a few hundred years. Again, the longer an animal is domesticated, the more of its natural behavior will be removed. The patterns of the Serval is, however, more commonly cat-like than its shape. It have these spots. It's not rosettes, it is actual spots. Again, rosettes is what a leopard, for instance, have. All of the leopards have these rosettes that are shapes with darker colorations, but these are black spots which either are round or oval. However, on their body, some of these spots will grow together, which most commonly is from the neck and then down the shoulders. They can also have it on other parts of the body, but that's where it's most common. And they will grow together in the length of the Serval, meaning that they will have these kinds of lines that goes down the necks. It will never go to the side. It will go in the shape of the cat. They can also have it on the neck in a smaller variety, and you can literally see it where they will maybe have a few spots that is a actual line, and then they will have a spot that's almost grown into it, and then the next spot will be a little less grown into it. So you can actually see this very specific pattern. Besides that, they are black on the back of their ears, and then they have a white spot on the back of the ears. Their ears are very big compared to their face or any other of their body parts, and can actually look like eyes, which I would believe were meant to actually terrify other animals. These cats are again very small. They have a total length about 60 centimeters, being 2 feet, and weigh at most 18 kilos, being about 40 pounds. So these are not big, which wouldn't be an issue if they live somewhere like Madagascar, because there's not really any, like the Fusa is a little bigger than them, but besides that, they would pretty much be the apex predator and nothing could really touch them. But that's not where they live. They live in Africa still, but in Tunisia, South Africa, Angola, Benin, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, DR Congo, Côte d'Ivoire, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gabon, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, Liberia, Malawi, Mali, Mozambique, Namibia, Niger, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Somalia, Sudan, Tanzania, Togo, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So, a lot of these places have bigger, badder bitches around. That's the best way to say it, I think. These are very small, the Serval, compared to pretty much anything else in these areas. Even, could you imagine, these are solitary animals. They live alone pretty much. So one of these against a pride of lions, I know where I would put my money. So therefore, of course, they need to be a little more clever. They do also live partially the same places as the lion, being grasslands and savannas and such, but they also live around freshwater, especially wetlands, rainforest, normal forest, and mountainous areas. Especially in the mountains, as I already mentioned, they are very agile with these specialized legs. So therefore, in rocky or hard to move around areas like the forest, they can really move and turn around in a very, very specific way that will help them around these bigger predators. For instance, if you ever seen a lion take down a gazelle, the gazelle can sometimes lose the lion simply by turning around very, very fast on the spot, and the lion is so big and heavy, so it will take it time to turn around, and it kind of need to do it in a U shape, where the gazelle can pretty much do it as a V shape, and the Serval can actually do the same here as the gazelle. So that is a very, very specific way to move around, which we see in a lot of prey animals, but we don't often see it in the predators. At this point, I think most people have guessed it, but they live within the temperate and tropical climate zone. The Serval, as most other cats, have this cat-like day rhythm, meaning that they like to sleep when they sleep and just to not do much else. However, they will have a spike in activity in the early morning and the late evening, where we see again same time as your house cat would go outside and have some fun. Not necessarily because they stay out of the sun, like for instance lions does, but more like what the house cat does. They like to go out when their prey is active, being mice for instance, and they are active in this time slot, so that's why the Serval is active in this time slot. Again, it is kind of weird that we have cats that are awake at the same time, but it is for different reasons. Bigger cats stay out of the sun in the middle of the day. Smaller cats are awake when their prey are awake. However, we are still in Africa, and therefore they will be more active on days where it is either colder, more clouds in the sky, or simply raining a lot. Because of course they are still affected by the sun, but it's not their main reason to be awake at that hour. Since the Serval is extremely solitary, they will not live together, males and females, or females and females at all. They will all have their own areas, and they can range from 10 to 32 square kilometers or 4 to 12 square miles. This is an extremely big area for such a small animal, and therefore at night they can walk on their tiny legs around 2 to 4 kilometers, be 1.25 to 2.5 miles at night, simply to find the best hunting grounds or the perfect place to take a nap. Because they are always walking with a purpose, even though they have these massive areas, they will have main parts of their areas where they will actually be around, and then the rest of the area is just to make sure that there's enough space between them and the next one. Besides that, they will also simply leave a part of their territory if something disturbs them. That could be, for instance, human settlements, or noise. It could be a bigger predator, or just a lot of maybe herbivores, but too big for them to hunt. Just in general noise and things to disturb them. Then they will just leave that part of their territory for a time, then maybe circle back to it at a later stage, see if it's better now, or just leave it for good. They will use a big part of the day simply by laying beneath a tree branch in the shadow somewhere nice and cozy and groom themselves. As once again we know from our house cats that they do use a big part of the day on that. But what is the funniest thing, which I actually have observed a lot, as some of you guys know, I have 2 cats, Neo and Ninja, and Neo always likes to get into issues. He's my baby boy. He wants to press every button he can. Ninja just wants to be left alone, and especially since he is as grown as he is now, he is really annoying to her. So when he gets into her space, she will simply put a paw on his chest, sometimes in his face, but most likely on his chest, and just mark like, you stay away, go away and leave me be. If he do not accept that, then she will put him in his place, but she will always put her paw off and simply mark, that is close enough, go away. And this is actually also what the Servals do. They are not aggressive beings, and they would not prefer a fight. Therefore, they will simply, if one should go into another's territory, they will put the paw up on their chest and mark, you have gone far enough, turn around. Most situations, the one that have gotten the paw on his chest will heed the word and go away. Sometimes it can come to a fight, but it isn't what happens most of the time, because aggressive behavior is not something that comes easily to civils, and that's probably also why they actually make good pets, even though they aren't fully domesticated and have been groomed to be domesticated animals over time and still have a lot of their wild behavior. They simply refuse to take the fight. This civil is, as many animals are, having a few issues. One being that they live both in wetlands and grasslands that aren't always doing so well, especially in Africa, but in general not doing so well. Besides that, we are also having a trait of civil skin, though that part is luckily on decline, and I can highly recommend, if you are ever offered a skin by a civil, then please say no, because it's really not something you need in your life. Besides that, in West Africa, the civil are used in traditional medicine, which is really something that isn't always so great, and farmers are also killing them to protect their livestock, which again, it makes sense. However, on the other side is that the civil is a cat that lives off rodents, not that big, and are easy to hide itself, and therefore their numbers are still growing strong, and they are listed as a least concern animal according to the IUCN Red List. And their numbers are currently stable, which means not growing and not declining, which I guess is a good place to be. Anyway, guys, enjoy the cinematics, and I will of course come back afterwards. Okay guys, that's all I got for you today, and as always I really hope you enjoyed it. You know the drill. Like, subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you know the next time I upload a video. I really hope to see you again, either in the comments below or in the next video. Bye guys!